Hello and welcome. Today we're going to look at how I animated this monorail from a magical world that starts with D and ends in Y. You may recognize this monorail from Orlando, Florida, where I grew up. We're going to look at how I took this from 3ds Max and put it into Blender, what I had to do once I got it into Blender, and actually animating this on the track. We're going to talk a little bit about UV unwrapping and how that was another challenge that I faced. And then the last step was adding sound effects to really bring it all to life. The reason that I animated this was to include it in much larger scenes. So what you see here is just the monorail on the track and just a basic foundation of what it's actually being used for, which is some larger landscapes and projects. As you get closer, some of these textures will need to be higher resolution, but from a medium distance and more, it looks really, really good. The workflow began in 3ds Max. When I got this into 3ds Max, I thought maybe the windshield and the windows and doors and the little parts of each monorail car would be separate parts, but it appeared that they were maybe just all one object. And so it was just textured and painted as one object, and I wanted these objects to be separated so I could work with them individually. So what I had to first do, I had to go into edit mode and cut all of the objects out that I wanted to texture differently. You know, these windows needed to be separate from the body. The doors needed to be separate from the main body. And so I had to go through and actually manually select all of these faces, right, and vertices that I wanted, and then copy them and just separate them. You know, I needed the windshield to be separate. I had to separate these lights, the roof components up here. See how they're separate objects? If I toggle off the body, you'll see all the other parts that were cut out. And some of those were textured pretty easily actually using Blender Kit. Now, I knew that I only needed to do this for two different cars, which was car number 1 and 2, because car number 3, 4, and 5 are all just duplicates of these first two. As always, I'm using photo references, so I got photos of the monorail and I used those as references when I was like painting and texturing this thing to make it look as realistic as possible. The main work though was going to be texturing and painting this body. Let's go back to what we started with, which is nothing. So I'm going to actually just remove this. Let's also remove the material entirely. I'm gonna go to edit mode and we're going to start our UV unwrapping. If you don't know a lot about UV unwrapping, just research it. It's basically like if you have a cube and the cube has 6 sides, well, you have to be able to see those 6 sides on a flat surface. So your UV is basically a flat version of what's getting wrapped around your object. In a cube, it's a lot more simple because it's just 6 squares. Complex objects like this and vehicles, it can get a lot more complex. And this is what our UV unwrap looks like after I did the Smart UV project and played around with settings. The problem is it's nearly impossible to paint something precise like this and get it to look perfect. You're getting these fades and it's not perfectly accurate. The stripe also has a black line bordering it. So what I ended up doing was just painting a rough draft of where I wanted things to be. I know this monorail has some lines here. I kind of got like an idea of where I wanted everything to go. Then what I would do is I would just take this image, I would save it, I would open up the image in Photoshop and I would clean all of that up. On a professional level, I think you shouldn't really be using Blender to paint and texture. You'd be using something like 3D Coat or ZBrush. These things cost money, so I'm just doing things more on a budget right now. And now I've got this open in Photoshop. So once I got it into Photoshop, I could see where all of these things were going to be, and then I can make things a lot more precise. So I could take this and use the rectangle tool and actually make this have a black outline with the rectangle and then fill it with the color that I wanted. Let's say I want to fill it with this color and then just reapply it in Blender. The other thing you can do is you can screenshot this UV map. So I could get out my snip tool and I could cut out this square and I can overlay it in Photoshop if I wanted to, just to have the UV reference, you know, to help sort of guide me. Okay, I'm back in Blender now. This is it. This is what my final file looked like within Photoshop for the first car here, and then I just applied that, and you get this. Lines that I created in Photoshop are much more precise and accurate and much better looking. I do have to continue to do that for the doors and for everything else, and then sort of play around with matching them up. Once I had my paint and my parts textured, it was time to move on to animating it. This was done using a follow path constraint. I have a NURBS path that I created, and I went to the top-down view of this track, and I created a path that perfectly matches up with this track, this line right here. I could keep going with this too in edit mode if I wanted to. All I did was had to click each vertex, hit E to keep adding. Once I have that path, I'm going to select my monorail body. All of the other objects are parented to this body so that when the body ends up on the track, all the other objects come with it. So you'll see they're all under the same group here, and the body is the main parent, and I have a group here, so if I turn off the group, the whole front will disappear. This connector and accordion is part of the first car as well. We're gonna go into the NURBS Path settings, and this has a path animation on it of 2000 frames. And then I went to the car, and we're gonna go to constraints, and we added a object constraint. We added a follow path. Then I did the target to the NURBS path. This is where the monorail was at first. It was centered in the very center, right smack dab in the middle of my workspace. And then I added an object constraint follow path, and then we can use the eyedropper and click on the NURBS path, and that's what gets the monorail on track. I had to do the same for the second one. Everything's parented to the second car that belongs to the second car, and all I did was offset it to 49 to get it to where it is now. Then I had to make another duplicate of that car, and instead of offsetting it 49, we're offsetting it to 96 and just spacing these out how we want them spaced out. Probably not perfect. This one's offset to 142. And of course, the last one is a duplicate of the first car, and it's offset all the way to 211, but also flipped around the other direction. So it was just rotated the other way. When you play around with your follow path speed, the amount of frames can affect the overall speed of your animation. So if I do this to like 3000 frames instead of 2000, my monorail is going to move slower. If you mess with your speed of the monorail, it's going to affect your offset. So now look, the offset's completely messed up, and we'd have to go into our follow path constraint and offset this more. Yeah, as the monorail turns, what's neat about it is the rest of the cars turn just like a train would. Now, sometimes you do run into some issues where you have to sort of customize and fix some of the turning like this. So what I would do is probably a manual transform and keyframe this transform in order to get it to look right. That's something that you can play around with and problem solve. Not a huge deal. After that, I decided to take this to the final step, which is adding sound. And also, by the way, I created different colors in Photoshop, so it was very easy for me to create new image textures with different colors and then apply them. Yeah, after that, it was time to add sound. So how I made the sound for the monorails is I dug through a lot of websites trying to find the sound that I liked of hearing the monorail go by. And I'll play that for you now, just so you can hear the sound that I created of the monorail passing by. Pretty good, right? Until I get to the park and I actually bring a microphone and film one passing by in real life. So I ended up just using a tram exterior sound that I found, a tram going by at a slow enough speed to match my monorail. And then I would crossfade the beginning and crossfade it out so it sounds like it's passing by. And what I did is I combined that, having listened to the monorail pass by in real life a few times. It kind of has this like fan sound. So what I did was I took a blow dryer and I put it on my kitchen counter, and then I took a boom mic and walked past the blow dryer with my microphone, and I played around with the settings for that and combined those two sounds together. So that's what I'm using for now. I hope you enjoyed my video, seeing a little bit of the challenges that I faced bringing this monorail to life, and I'm excited to show you some of the scenes I've been working on with it, because I'm a big fan of Disney and world building, and this has just been a really fun challenge, and I like to put these scenes on my TV. Hope you're enjoying it as well, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.